matters, and Trump does not rank high in it. She also wrote, Trump is good for beers and barbecue, not as a president, and claimed that Trump's moral character is questionable. And by the way, she even tweeted this about me, and there's me, and says, oh, Glenn Beck, why does Hannity support unprincipled Donald Trump? And it gets worse. More resurfaced tweets are even more disturbing. One from her Twitter account in 2016 reads, quote, don't we get it? Obama is a Muslim. And there are lots of these tweets. From another 2013, she says, please pray for my babies and me. We're about to board the plane to California. And there's a homosexual female and linking out to a Facebook post. So with only 6 days left in this campaign, there are serious, real, open questions about the surging Kathy Barnett campaign and where she truly stands on issues.
It's really weird watching Sean Hannity read someone's old tweets, a Republican reading old tweets. There's fear-mongering about gay folks. And there's also calling Obama a Muslim. Is he against that or is he for that? Like, this is confusing me because that's the Republican line. When you have this many people who are trying to kiss Donald Trump's ass to get any of his endorsements or at least get a good spot in the Republican Party, they're all saying the same thing. So you can't have anything wrong with what she's saying because you say these things. Now, the reason that they're frustrated and a little bit scared of her is because, as I mentioned, she's surging here. And she also ran for a House seat back in 2020 and lost, but maybe she's just getting too much momentum from them. Let's go to some more details, because in Barnett, who's been soaring in the polls ahead of Tuesday's primary, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell would be dealing with a general election candidate who he'd be in opposition. Researchers' dream here, because potentially it endangers the Republican effort to take back the Senate, because she probably does have some issues with her, but more on the general election side of it. So McConnell has been fixated on ensuring that the 2022 midterms are not a repeat of 2012 or 2010 cycles. The Kentuckian and Republicans missed good chances to win the majority in those years because they nominated candidates who talked about things like legitimate rape, as you remember, or had to publicly assure voters that they weren't witches. That was another fun ad that we saw. But her whole campaign and her platform is this pro-life stance, and also that she's the child, she's the product of a rape, which many of them are in support of happening here. So maybe that's part of her Republican draw here. So let's get some details of that. So Barnett, she surged after releasing this powerful video. It says, it wasn't a choice, it was a life, in which she movingly talks about how her mother was raped when she was 11. And yet Barnett is the living, breathing byproduct of that horrific circumstance. Also, the video hit a nerve with primary voters in Pennsylvania. A source close to one of Barnett's rivals told Axios, and gained resonance following the leak of that Supreme Court draft decision about Roe versus Wade. So Dr. Oz is in some trouble, so he's looking for some help from Fox News and Sean Hannity. I'm just curious if it's gonna work. I think he'll survive, but not because he went on Sean Hannity's show and said this nonsense.
I don't see any way, any scenario under which she can win a general election. That is my 35-year in broadcasting opinion. I want you to respond.
I concur with your diagnosis. She is a mystery, Barnett. They won't answer questions about her record, but what I do know concerns me. And this is why President Trump endorsed me. He said I would win the general election. That's the most important goal for us.
That's all it is, no matter what I have to say, Waz. I'm sorry I cut you off there. Let's go to your thoughts.
No, sorry. I thought you were throwing it to me.
Oh no, I was. It was a bit. It was a little bit confusing. It's fine.
It was. I'm just shocked that it would be a demerit that somebody would call President Obama a Muslim. Like birtherism and that kind of othering is what got Donald Trump popping in the Republican Party. Like, period. This idea that this would be something that was unfavorable for this woman is ridiculous. Anti-homosexuality is a core tenet and staple of Republican politics. So this idea that's like, whoa, she said mean things about gay people before, that this would sink her somehow with Republicans is stupid. I don't even understand these attacks.
Yeah, well, they have to come up with something. It's hard. It gets, again, the differences are getting narrower and narrower because they're all following behind Donald Trump. That's all they can figure out is how to follow behind Donald Trump. And if everybody's doing it, how do we find out who's the good one versus the bad one? The difference is Dr. Oz was on TV and he was popular. That's Donald Trump's reasoning for endorsing him. He said it out loud. He didn't think it in his head. Thanks, Waz, for joining us again on another episode of The Watch List. Hope to have you back soon. He's always wonderful. We didn't get a chance to talk about sports. We're gonna do that for sure next time you come on here because it's gotta happen. I mean, I'm gonna ask you after we're done with this about them Celtics again. Anyway, goes up next is John Iadarola with the Damage Report. We'll catch you guys tomorrow, and until then, check this guy out.
Okay, sorry.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the show with me, John Iadarola, and Aida Rodriguez. Aida, you're back, and I know you got a lot to talk about because we were just talking a second ago. How's it going, Aida?
It's going well. I'm glad to be back. I love doing your show.
We love to have you here.
No, I love the audiences. They come to my shows and they show up and they're just, I really appreciate it.
I know you've been doing shows recently. I was lucky enough to be able to go to the recording of your special not that many months ago. Just before the show, to sort of like get ready, got Ida on the show. I was watching some of your recent comedy and I watched a segment you did about why you think guys should have to earn their dicks, and it was hilarious. Anyway, there's a lot of great stuff out there.
The world would definitely be a better place.
It was quite funny. Anyway, very excited to have you here. And there are some things that we will be talking about that I think are a little bit on the fun or light side, and we'll have some fun with that. A lot of the news, not necessarily great. No to the producer, I don't. But we're of course gonna be having to talk about what's going on with the future of Roe v. Wade and the right pretending that they're not ecstatic about this, pretending that this isn't just one more step to taking us back to some mythical conception of the 1920s. So that'll be fun. And we've got a lot of other stuff to talk about, gerrymandering and Good Samaritans, and they're coming for the libraries and a lot of other good stuff. So along the way, if you're on a platform that would allow for things like liking a stream or sharing it, that'd be great. You can do that right now. And if you want to interact with us, you can send us comments, tweets, super chats, and all that. And we will have a little chat with you during our breaks. But with all that said, Ida, are you ready to talk about some news?
I am.
I am too. And so with that, let's jump into this first topic. Yesterday was all we're apparently gonna get from the Democratic Party as we cruise towards Roe v. Wade being exploded by the conservative Supreme Court. The Dems had a vote to try to codify Roe into law, and it failed. And so I know you're probably thinking, filibuster. They got us with the filibuster. Nope, they didn't even have to do that. All 50 Republican senators and Democratic Senator Joe Manchin opposed the bill to codify Roe v. Wade. So it was a 49-51 vote. The Republicans didn't even have to filibuster it. So that's it, I guess. Schumer tried, and yeah, so I think that's it. Manchin said, he understands obviously this is a very crucial issue. He said it's just disappointing that we're gonna be voting on a piece of legislation which I would not vote for today. But I would vote for Roe v. Wade codification if it was today. My heart breaks for what's gonna happen to all these people. You know, what am I gonna do? Can't do anything, I don't like, there's some stuff in the bill I don't like or whatever. So people's rights are gonna be stripped away, and that's it. If you need me, I'll be on my yacht. Have fun with what you used to have rights-wise, everybody. So Ida, we haven't gotten a chance to talk about this general topic, and now we have, the update of the Senate being completely flaccid in the face of what's going on. What do you make of all this?
Funny that you use the word flaccid, because that is so, applicable to so many of these white elitist men who are targeting, but the thing about it is that when we talk about human reproductive rights, we get really caught up in, which is rightfully so, the oppression of women, Gilead being upon us. But there is also there's this thing about keeping poor people down, people of color down, and they use every and any method that they can to do that. And this is one of them because, people barely have health care in this country. Poor people and people who are struggling. We talk about the middle class a lot. There are a lot of people out there who can't even, that being in the middle class is an aspiration for them. And we continue to forget them because we always talk about the middle class. And of course, the elite, they're always at the top of the line. But this is just another way to keep poor people and Black people down, because of course these men can fly their mistresses and their wives when they have unwanted pregnancies and their daughters to wherever they can to go where it is legal. It is the people who cannot afford to go to the doctor to get a physical, the people who cannot afford a private school. You know what I mean? And they have to be subjected to this horrible educational system in this country that they're targeting instead of trying to improve. So when I hear this, I think about the Handmaid's Tale, and I know a lot of people use it because they're, all the intellectuals battle on Twitter about what it really meant. the figurative, perception that we have of it is that women are going to be oppressed and held down, and so are people of color, Black people, and poor people in this country who cannot afford to do the things that the elite can. And that's why this is so unfortunate, because it's just one more target. And we got a lot of racial issues in this country that we cannot ignore. We have a lot of, LGBTQ plus issues. But the reality that there's a class war in this country, and as that gap gets wider, people who don't have basic needs are gonna suffer more. And I'm tired of it.
Yeah, 100%. You're totally right. It's never actually gonna be a ban on everyone. If a rich person, needs their mistress to get an abortion and the nearest place is on the dark side of the moon, they're gonna get there. They're gonna do it. They're gonna have the resources. It's just you that might not be able to. You might not be able to pay for it if it becomes incredibly expensive. You may not be able to drive over 1,000 miles round trip once, or maybe it'll end up being made that you have to go twice to get it done. It will be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for a lot of Americans, and that's what they're trying to accomplish here. And along the way, we have discovered how few allies we have in fighting back against this. They would have just let them filibuster. They would have. They didn't have to do that because they had Manchin. And if they didn't have Manchin, God only knows which it would have been that would have acted as a shield to stop the Republicans from actually having to filibuster. By the way, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, these are Republicans that said again, their hearts break over abortion rights, but not this bill. I don't like that bill. You had these rights for 50 or 60 years, but I don't like that bill. I don't like the thing that's in it. And so that's gonna be it. And they didn't even support it. Susan Collins, by the way, who is coming off of a week of her having said over the past couple of years that all of these great justices have promised me that they would never allow anything to be done to Roe v. Wade. Oops, they lied to me. Now I'm also gonna vote against the law. There's no contrition, there's no admitting that they were wrong. They're all just moving on, Ida. And we're supposed to do what at this point? Hope that we happen to live in one of the good states on this issue?
It's just disgusting. We live in a country that prides itself in being the greatest country in the world, which is foolishness. But isn't it weird that in this country that's supposed to be so advanced and so civilized, that people of color, Black people, women, LGBTQIA people have to still, in 2022, when we have cars that drive themselves, fight for basic human rights in this country? And I believe abortion is a personal choice. Whatever your religion is, I think you have the right to have one and the right not to have one. And it is not my job to tell you what you can and cannot do based on my personal beliefs. Just like I don't tell anybody how to live their lives in any other, part of their lives. But it's so disgusting that people have to fight. And these are the same people who are attacking the educational system. They're the same people who are attacking healthcare. They're getting checks by these corporations. These are the same people who do not give a damn about these kids after they're born. It is just a talking point, like every other talking point, like critical race theory, just like that riles up a base of people who don't have basic education to continuously keep them on the hook because they just want their votes, because their votes generate money for them from their corporations. And I wish people really understood this, because I don't hate people who are conservative. I don't hate people who have different beliefs than me. I just hate the fact that a lot of them are being manipulated because they don't have the benefit of a good education and the information to be able to make good decisions about their own lives. And that's so sad, John. It's so sad.
Yeah, they're deluded and they become active participants in the delusion. And if you're like our audience, especially the audience that watches live, I mean, these are people that are really tapped in. They consume stuff every day. Like, it is amazing that any of you are not out of your goddamn mind from what you have to absorb every day. That you have to be out there in like 1 week of news cycles and listen to all these people on Twitter talking about like, I am sick of not being free. I need Elon Musk. He's gonna make me free. He's gonna let me tweet the N-word. I'll finally be free. And then a woman says, hey, I was just raped by my uncle. I don't wanna give birth to the product of my uncle raping me. Shut up, shut up. We're gonna lock you in a room. We're gonna tie you to a bed. We're gonna force you. The power of the government is gonna force you to do that. And then we're gonna shut the door on that. And then, come on, just let me tweet about QAnon more. Let me lie about vaccines. I'm not free. And you have to absorb that every day. And you're made to be insane at the ridiculous hypocrisy, at the outright lies. We're gonna get to more of their lies about where this is going in just a little bit. But it's difficult, Ida, year after year after year, when you're gaslit in like simultaneously from dozens of different directions. From the right, sure, from the media, but also from most of the Democrats and from people that you were raised to told perhaps that you should be able to trust. You're just gaslit by literally everybody.
And it's just how you walking about the earth being a woman with all of the complexities of being a woman, because we get discriminated against if we're gay, we get discriminated against if we're black, we get discriminated against. They find a reason, the people who hate women and want to keep women down find any and every reason to hold them down. But it's just a fact of walking about the earth, knowing that they want to penalize, they focus so heavily on women having reproductive rights more than they do even the men who violate the women. And that is it's such a slap in the face to us, because we see people who are perpetrators of sexual assault and pedophilia on a daily basis get off and just be able to walk about the earth. But you want to criminalize my right to my body. And that is that's so backwards. It is so backwards.
It is, like you said, we have self-driving cars. It's 2022. Every year I get to discover more ways that I have been throughout my life so stupid. Like as a kid, I'm like watching Star Trek and thinking like, someday that'll be us. We'll get past all this economy stuff and we'll all just pursue our passions and reach the stars. That was me at 17. And no, it's only going to get worse and dumber. The images on the screens will be higher definition, but what you'll see on those screens will drive you mad. That's all it is.
Why did you sound like Mighty Mouse?
I don't know. At 18, my voice finally dropped. I don't know. Look, I'm telling you about how stuff is gonna drive you crazy, so I'm gonna demonstrate that now. Let's jump to this video.
I believe in democracy, and I don't believe that the minority should have the ability to block things that the majority want to do. That's not in the Constitution. What we're talking about right now are the individual rights and liberties of half the population.
The draft of the court's majority holding in Roe versus Wade is the actual decision. What impact will the loss of abortion access mean economically for women?
Well, I believe that eliminating the right of women to make decisions about when and whether to have children would have very damaging effects on the economy and would set women back decades.
There won't be a loss of abortion access. There might be restrictions in some states, but there's going to be plenty of opportunities for everyone that wants one.
Okay, so we're gonna have to cut this out for the final thing, but I want to make sure that Ida knows we're having some tech problems. Anyway, so in that you have Janet Yellen, Secretary of the Treasury, being asked about the likely economic damage that'll be done by women and other people, pregnant people losing their reproductive rights. And she says it's gonna have a massive economic impact. Sean Hannity, who every day pretends that he cares about the state of the economy or whatever, cruises right past that and does what he's been doing since the SCOTUS leak. Ida, every day he's trotted out to say, why are you all freaking out about this? Why are you implying that anyone will lose their rights? Nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to change. There might be some reasonable regulations in certain places, but that's going to be it. Why are you freaking out about this absolutely unprecedented action by the SCOTUS that was so extreme that every one of them knew that they had to lie about their intentions to get onto the court, and their presence on the court is the product of more than a half century of right-wing activism and radicalism that has produced the think tanks necessary to cook up these lawyers, to put them through, one form or another of law schools and all that, and then eventually get them onto the court, nominated by presidents who invariably have lost the popular vote. And they know all along the way that the American people don't support any of this. But now the right finally got what they wanted, Ida. And Sean Hannity and others will come out and say, you're being hysterical. Nothing is going to happen. Why are you pretending that anything is going to change?
That's what they always say before something horrible happens. This is ridiculous. This could never happen is usually the way it starts. Sean Hannity, to his people and his followers, I always ask, that's your king? That's the dude that you follow? The man that after the Met Gala was so obsessed with Hillary Clinton that he tweeted about her more than 5 times within an hour. And it's just like this, the way that he feels about women is so obvious that it's just, why are you even in the conversation? That is what I want to know. And the other thing is, y'all got a handmaid on the Supreme Court. What did you think you were gonna get? And I'm not calling her that to be insulting. That is what they actually called themselves, handmaids, the sect of Catholicism that she belongs to. So for me, I just think, listen, I think it's really upsetting and it's very sad. And unfortunately for women, we always have people making decisions on our behalf who don't care about our best interests, are self-hating women and men who hate us. Because at the end of the day, if you can't give me my agency over my body, then you don't see me as a full realized human being. And that's what this is all about.
100%. Yeah, they're worried about like the economic ramifications. That's what Sean Hannity is. He's worried that if people realize what's going on, it'll hurt them in the midterms. And on the other side, the Democrats are like trying to figure out like, okay, how can we make this influence the midterms? And that's fine. This is a big change. It should have those effects. That ain't at the top of my list of concerns right now. It's about the actual thing that's being done. So let's talk about what's actually going to happen in a day or in a week or in a month when they do this. And instantaneously, in almost half of all the states in our nation, the trigger laws are triggered, and Roe v. Wade is gone, and abortion is made illegal. Now we can speculate, we can try to map out in 1 year, in 10 years, in 50 years, how many people will be affected by this. Why don't we talk about in 1 second? Instantly, when they do it, there will be 300,000 people who theoretically will have their ability to choose the fate of the pregnancy that they then have at that exact moment. 300,000 will no longer have control over that. I find that to be fascinating. I've never seen the product of that sort of research before. It will be millions, sure. In a few months, in a year, it'll be millions of people, but instantly, 300,000 people, you better hope that you made the decision earlier that morning or something, because it ain't up to you anymore. It's up to the government. The small government, which they don't want to have any control of your life except literally what happens to your body. As an example, in Louisiana right now, they allow abortions up to 22 weeks, with exceptions that after that, if the baby won't survive, or if there's a severe threat to the mother's physical health. One woman that they're talking about, they're profiling by NBC News, is one woman's baby is already viable, though she will likely still be pregnant in late June when the court's decision is expected. If Roe is overturned, all abortions in Louisiana instantly become illegal unless the mother's life is at stake. That's what they did now. I mean, now they're getting all fired up. I mean, those sorts of carve outs, we'll see how long those last. Let's see, in the United States, 13 different states have trigger laws that would automatically ban abortion in the first and second trimesters. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, in most of the states, obviously it's already illegal in the third trimester. And Ida, I wanted to throw this out here because I found this to be fascinating. The right is going to hate these graphics being read out loud. 84% of lawmakers who sponsored the trigger laws we're talking about were men. The laws had 0 women sponsors in 5 states. 12 of the 13 governors who signed them into law are men. 91% of the US senators who voted to confirm the Supreme Court justices that are going to destroy Roe v. Wade are men. They've been very, very interested in this, all of these men. We don't have a racial breakdown, but I think you can do the math for yourself. But yeah.
They're threatened by women. Women are thriving in education. They're thriving in, in all aspects. Black women are amongst the biggest group of people who are educated in this country. These white men who are hanging on to their last threads of power and their last hoorah, who want to, go back to the good old days and make America great again, to where women, people of color, and LGBTQ plus people were oppressed. I invite, I stay in Solution. I am inviting the people in those states who who are vehemently opposed to what's happening, relocate. I know it sounds easier said than done. Let their economies crash. Move out of those states as soon as you can. And I know it's easier said than done. I relocated from Florida to California, and I ended up unhoused for a little bit of time, but it was worth it for me because I would probably punch DeSantis in the face if I could. So that's just me. But what I'm telling you is we talk a lot, and true activism comes with action. And many of us have to put our money where our mouths are. Some people can't afford to do it, but those of you who can impact the economy of the state that you're living in, we have to do something. That is the only way that they're gonna hear us, because they don't hear anything but dollars. They only hear cha-ching. They don't hear people. They don't care about you. If they cared about you, they would listen to you and act accordingly to what was important to you and what you needed. And they're not doing that. And it is not just even racial anymore, because of course it's gonna continue to be racial because this country was built on white supremacy. But it's also targeting poverty and the people who can't. And if you don't understand what's happening now, and you find yourself in the future feeling like you're being an indentured servant or a slave, that's what they want. They want rich people to run this country. They want you to run yourself into the ground to continue to make the money. That's what's happening in the country, and it's getting worse and worse. And the technology just gives you more access to read about it.
And to be driven insane, Yeah, there's all these people that are desperate for, I don't know if maybe they need drama in their life or something, so they get into QAnon and everything. They need these elaborate conspiracy theories, these groups of people operating the shadows to eat babies or whatever. No, is it not dramatic enough that you have one entire political party and the vast majority of another political party who go through a countrywide theater production every second of every day to get people worked up over issues that all of those people pulling the strings don't care anything about, so that they can stay in power, so they can stop taxes from going up, so that they can have unlimited money. These incredibly rich people who would never be able to spend the money that they have if the taxes were raised, have dragon sickness, they've lost their minds, and they need more fictional digital zeros at the end of their bank account. And because of that, everything in America is weak. That seems dramatic enough to me, but I guess it isn't good enough for them. By the way, though, men are obviously a big portion of the problem here, but let's be clear, as you were talking about the co-opting and all that, there are right-wing women who are lining up to be a part of this. Idaho's lieutenant governor is calling for a special session of the state legislature to remove all exceptions from their abortion trigger law so that it'll be ready to go when Roe v. Wade is canceled. Wait a second, you might say, I don't know exactly what that headline means. Let me make it clear to you. Right now in their trigger law, there are 3 exceptions. If you've been raped, if it's incest, or if they need to save the life of the person who theoretically will be forced to give birth here. They want to remove all of those. Meacham is saying, if a doctor believes that carrying the pregnancy longer or trying to give birth will kill that person, you still have to do it. You still have to do it. I'm getting all of these right wingers who are attacking me because I've been tweeting recently about how the right is getting ready to start locking up and executing women and other pregnant people for having abortions. And they hate that, they call that lies. And so I point them to the primary battles in Texas right now where candidates are arguing about that. There's another state where literally in their state legislature, they're debating making that law. McGeacham isn't ready to execute them necessarily, but is ready to condemn them to death. And as I talked about in the pre-show, I apologize if you already watched pre-show. I don't want to be repetitive. Ida, they tell us it's murder to commit an abortion. They love executing murderers. Why are we supposed to believe that that's not the inevitable end of this? That they've created this special carve out where, man, I really hate murder and this is totally murder, but what are you gonna do? I guess it'll just be a fine. Yeah, that's how it's gonna go years from now. They're never gonna go farther than what they're saying right now. It's
all a function of the same thing, because the murderers you killing usually look like me or darker, and the people who are having these crises in the situation where they may need an abortion either come from my economic background, racial or ethnic. But you know what? I'm gonna say something very revolutionary, or maybe not revolutionary, but controversial. I don't want any woman who can't have a baby anymore making decisions about my reproductive rights. It's very easy to be on the other side. Well, you'll never be faced with that issue to make a decision about if these young women are able, or young people who are pregnant and dealing with these issues are able to make decisions on behalf of their own reproductive rights. You bigots, you are ageist. You have a war against younger people. You're always talking about how young people are irreverent because they're dare to fight for their rights. And they dare to come out. And listen, I'm a comedian. I have jokes about everybody, including younger people and some of the stuff that they do. But I honestly am thankful for the younger generations that have not only just opened my eyes to what I should be fighting for and am worthy of, but to have the audacity and the bravery to go out and fight for it. This is just part of that fight. You have these middle-aged women that are already past having children and are bitter and miserable because of the choices that they made. And now they want to rain that misery upon these young women and the decisions that they have to make so that they can ensure that they give themselves the best future that they can in a country that is set up for the average person to lose, not win.
Yeah.
That is a myth.
100%. Well, with that, we are gonna have to take our first break. When we come back, a lot of other issues to talk about, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a few.
Just makes us hateful, man.
I get it. By the way, before we went live, I got a comment from someone who's like, why are you talking about this so much? You're just doing this to distract from Biden. You're just being a DNC shill because you're talking about Roe v. Wade. I'm like, shut up, seriously. Like, this is in 99% of all ways, this is a very easy job, but you do have to deal with a lot of BS. I swore right there. Yes, the reason that I'm focusing on it isn't a natural outgrowth of the belief that people should have control over what happens to their body being one of my core values for my entire life. It's because I love Nancy Pelosi that much. I just really want Nancy Pelosi to be happy. That's why I'm talking about it. I craft my rundown every day to please Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all those other a-holes that I spend so much time attacking. It's great cover for how much I love them.
Yeah, and it's why you're supposed to do this for us. You're supposed to use your male privilege, your white privilege, to stand on the front lines for those of us who don't have power. And it's just, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, John, because you actually care about people. People who don't know you personally don't know that this is your gospel. This is not just you like the Fox people when the cameras turn on. You actually operate from compassion and empathy, and they can't fathom that. Who else is supposed to be standing up for us? They're not listening to us. We need you to speak up for us, because if you don't, then who will? They're not listening to us.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I will try. For some people, you're now HBO Max. You don't need me. you way bigger time. And gonna be going on to even bigger things. But I do appreciate that, and thank you.
It's true.
Okay, everybody, I want to welcome those who've recently become members of the channel. Just My Tea, thank you for being here. Anna N as well, thank you for becoming members. I do appreciate that. And now, sending in some super chats, Sofia Smirnov says, as a mom of 2 young kids, I really wanted them and loved them so much. What is not talked about enough is what it must feel like to be born to someone who is forced. So many things wrong in the world from kids who are not loved. Sure. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's up to the people. Like nobody should be forced to have or not have. Like it should be up to you. And we shouldn't in 2022 have to be having this conversation.
Yeah. And you know,
Wendy Gibbs. Sorry, we're saying?
I just wanted to say quickly, because the truth is that women who are dealing with these issues and probably bitter because they have these children are dealing with trauma. And so in a country where mental health is also not prioritized, because we don't ever talk about the mental health aspect of this, it's so hypocritical to say you care about people when you don't care about them because you don't care about all of them. And the issues that this brings upon us is just, we don't ever take that into consideration.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, none of them who are talking about how everybody needs to be forced to give birth are saying that. Well, then we're making them do it. So I guess there's an obligation there. So they will become wards of the state. They will be given a universal basic income. Their education will be taken care of. Their healthcare will be taken care of. Nobody actually wants that. It's your problem that they're going to put onto you. That's it. Anyway, Wendy Gibson says the GOP are so short-sighted. In 15 years' time, all these unwanted children will be teenagers with mental issues being brought up in a home in which they are unwanted. And then these teenagers will be able to get hold of a gun. I mean, look, I don't think that they are looking that far ahead, but they will be perfectly happy. A grayer, wrinklier Tucker Carlson will be happy to fearmonger off of anything that these kids end up doing. But thank you for the super chat. Breaker, oh no, we only have 5 seconds. Okay, we have a lot of more comments. We'll definitely get to them after the next break, but more news after this. One of the craziest things about the damage report is if you look at the number of minutes that we do day by day, the show is twice as long as it was like 3 years ago, and it goes by twice as fast. Yeah. It's so difficult to fit everything in. I don't know how exactly that works. But anyway, with that said, I wanted to talk about someone who I know Aida's a big fan of, Ron DeSantis. Let's jump into this.
As you can see in those side-by-side maps, you see some of those blue spots fade away into gray, and some of the gray turn to red. That means that those previously very competitive seats are going to become safely Republican, and Democrats are going to fight just to have the kind of representation that they've had. And it means almost certainly you're going to lose one or even two Black House Democratic members of Congress.
At some point, we're gonna fix that tech issue. Anyway, what you're seeing there is a breakdown of what Ron DeSantis's plan was when it came to redistricting Florida. So as in many states, the Florida legislature is supposed to every 10 years with the product of the census figure out, okay, what's our change in population? How exactly are we supposed to split up and delegate political power? That's what they say they do. Mainly it's how can we possibly wring more influence out of this? And that is how they generally do it. Definitely all the Republicans and a lot of the Democrats too don't care about whether the districts they create are representative or whatever. They just want more power. In Florida though, they decided to go a step further. It wasn't good enough to have one party choose all the districts. They decided, let's just let Ron DeSantis do it. And they literally just gave it to that one guy. That was their plan. And he created a map that was so mad. It was too radical for the legislature to do. Florida Republicans wouldn't have come up with this, but Ron DeSantis did. The good news though, is that a Florida trial court judge just yesterday blocked that congressional map. In particular, not just because it was going to give a whole bunch of added unearned political power to Florida Republicans, but it was considered to be racially biased. So I want to run you through a little bit of what Judge Lane Smith said. Said it's unconstitutional under Florida's Fair District Amendment because it reduces the impact of 370,000 Black voters in 8 mostly rural counties. The judge said it diminishes African Americans' ability to elect the representative of their choice. Interestingly, Smith was appointed by Ron DeSantis, says he's going to issue his formal ruling this week, noting that timing is crucial. Candidates hoping to run in the state's 28 congressional districts face a June 17th qualifying deadline. That's happening in a lot of states, by the way. They're like live adjudicating these maps as people are literally running in maybe one district, maybe they'll end up being a different one. That makes campaigning a little bit awkward. But anyway, what they did effectively, Aida, wasn't just switch. Like I gotta remind people, Florida is like everybody thinks of it as like a hard red state, and it elects Republicans a lot. It was incredibly close. Like Ron DeSantis very narrowly won. It is effectively a 50-50 state. But that's not how the congressional representation works out, even before this map. And it was gonna be even more biased towards the Republicans. But that wasn't good enough for Ron DeSantis. He wanted even more, and along the way, he wanted to effectively annihilate 3 congressional districts that historically have sent African-American politicians to Congress. So he did all of that, and at least for now, that map isn't going to go forward, although of course it could be appealed.
Well, I know that Hurricane Maria had a big impact on the voting in Florida because a lot of those Puerto Ricans came to Florida, to Central Florida, to seek refuge after what happened after the hurricane. But this is what I say to all of the Black and brown people in the state of Florida, the state that I grew up in. Every single one of you should vote against Ron DeSantis, because regardless of what your political affiliation is, he tried to take away your vote. So even if you consider yourself Republican and conservative, this guy is trying to silence you and take your vote away. So I would say that if you want to get rid of this guy, since the racist people, racism isn't a deal breaker for some of the people that are there. But if you are Black and brown and you live in these rural areas, if you are in the Ghouls, Homestead, Palatka, Ocala, wherever you are in Florida, and whatever you register in terms of where you are fiscally or socially, whatever it is, he tried to take your vote away from you. You don't matter to him. And that's why I talk to people who are people of color who want to identify with this Republican Party so badly because of their conservative views. What they are standing on is directly opposed to your freedom. And that doesn't mean that I think that the Democrats are any better. But I would get rid of the person who says you don't have a vote, you don't have a right to speak. He wants to silence you altogether. And that's why you shouldn't vote for him. I know nobody in my family is gonna vote for him. And people there, I have conservative people in my family.
Yeah. Well, I would be careful what you say publicly about him. He could be our president or perhaps king at some point. Ron DeSantis, he certainly sees that in his future. Now, the trial court judge has blocked this. Of course, it's going to be appealed. It could end up going to the state Supreme Court, which, like with Smith being appointed by DeSantis, is now even more tilted towards conservatives because of the people that Ron DeSantis has put it on. And let's say that it gets appealed past that to the Supreme Court. Well, that also, thanks to the undemocratic nature of our presidential elections, as well as our Senate, is tilted towards the conservatives. At no step of this process do the people with power have a majority of the population that agrees with them on any of this, but they have control of all of those steps. Isn't it amazing that that's the way that works out? But think about how this works in practice. So Ron DeSantis very narrowly beats out a candidate to become governor. That candidate, by the way, was a Black candidate. He beats him. He then stuffs the court with conservatives who are going to allow him to annihilate a currently held by an African-American candidate district. It's amazing how they can do this all along the way and pass laws that are gonna make it more difficult for them to vote. Like in Florida, they already have this amendment specifically because the people didn't like the way gerrymandering was being done. And this has happened in multiple states, and the legislatures and the governors just don't listen to it. Like, there's nothing we can do to get through to them that we think it's insane that this is how our politicians are picked. The system just continues.
Yeah, we don't pay attention to, there's so much propaganda because a lot of people are just out here grifting, as we say, and just capitalizing on people's pain and ignorance. So you have all these activist people that are telling you, hey, the Democratic Party is bad, the Republican Party, they're all bad. Historically, none of them have really been good for people of color because here we are still fighting for our basic rights. But there is a lesser of two evils because when you try to silence people altogether, then you really don't have anything in the fight. And so we have to use critical thinking, which they don't want us to use because there's a war against education in this country as well. And they label it as being elitist, which they destroyed the education system for gain and profit. And now they criticize you for having an education, which is all bizarre and something else altogether. But the reality of it is that some of these people don't see you as a human being. They don't see us as human beings, and they're trying to take our votes and our rights for profit and gain. and power. And it should be off with their figurative heads.
Figurative. Yes, exactly. Don't freak out, Fox News. We said figurative. Okay, with that said, we are going to take it.
Sorry.
What's that?
They don't know what that means.
That's a good point. Okay, so with that, we're gonna take a little early second break. We got some real serious stuff to get into when we come back, so don't go anywhere. Okay, everybody, let's see what's going on out there. George sent in a super chat to say the reason that the protests outside of homes made the elites so upset is because it reminds them that we know where they live. I don't want violence, but it's inevitable when you push people far enough. Yeah, I will just say I don't want violence. I don't mind protests at all. I think it's crazy that they think that they can do all, like specifically allowing protests outside of like reproductive health clinics and then saying, no, there has to be this mile-long moat, before you get to one of their homes.
Can I just say something? I go on tour with Liz Winstead for to fight for women's reproductive rights, and I am one of the people. Gina Yashere is another comedian. Joel, there's a bunch of us who go out and escort these young women while they're being harassed by the anti-abortion activists who not come only there with fake baby dolls that have all this stuff drawn on them. They show up with guns in states where guns are legal to intimidate these young women, creating these fake clinics. And now you scared of a protest?
Yeah. Like, you got time to do that. Go work with like foster children or something. Like, you love to talk about, like, why don't you go do something proactive actually?
Yeah.
Anyway, Breaker Dragon says, can I just say it's my dogma that the appendix is an unholy organ and against my beliefs. So we need to band together and everyone has to have it removed by age 21. This pees me off so much. Yeah, it's like imagine if you just have written down in a book, this is my belief about your bodies, I'm gonna force it on you. It is equally insane. Okay, let's see. Homemaker Hobbit says, John at 17 sounds like the gingerbread man from Shrek. Thanks, appreciate it. James Thompson says, in the military, we could always use it's above my rank. I think it's talking about the way that they get away from having to ever actually do anything in the Senate. Dystopian Dragon says, a corpse has more rights than I do. Jeez. Nerd Girl Dragon says, the bright side of COVID, I'm home to see TDR with one of my fave guests, Aida. Awesome. Hope it's not a bad case. Hope you get over it fast. Okay, let's see. Breaker Dragon became a tier 2 member. Thank you for that. You get access to our weekly top 10 list that I do with Francesca Fiorentini. There's now, I don't know, like 80 of them. It's a great back category if you become a tier 2 or tier 3 member. Also, if you become a tier 3 member, we have a live monthly hangout that's gonna be happening next Thursday. Mark Hatfield, welcome to tier 1 membership. Thank you for being here. Pitchfork's Dragon says, after 11 months, lying to Congress under oath is impeachable, even for Supreme Court judges. Impeach and remove. Sounds good, sounds reasonable. Not gonna happen. They don't care that they were lied to. And in the same exact way, by the way, all of these, the Ben Shapiro's, the Sean Hannitys, the Laura Ingrams are like, why are you pretending that anything's gonna change? It's not gonna be illegal, and we're not coming for same-sex marriage. We're not coming for interracial marriage. If they do you think Ben Shapiro is gonna turn on his party? I can't believe I was lied to. You think Sean Hannity's gonna be doing monologues about how they've gone too far? No. Don't listen to people that are gonna be celebrating when what they say won't happen. Anyway, coming up after this program, you could of course watch Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. We'll be joined by Yasmin Aliyah Khan. Jane Bombauer will be on for debate as well, so sounds like a really fun show. Also wanna give you an early heads up that coming up next Tuesday, Cenk Uygur, myself, Anna Kasparian, and Aida is gonna be joining us as well. We're gonna be doing live primary coverage of the Kentucky, North Carolina, Oregon, and Pennsylvania primaries. I'm gonna be involved. I'm gonna be coming back from New York. I'm not exactly sure how that's gonna happen, but I really wanna be there, especially now that I know Aida's gonna be involved. So everyone get ready for that. It's coming up next Tuesday. We'll have more details for you soon. For now though, let's return to the news. Just realized as we come back that my rundown is now very different, but I'm gonna try to run with it. So let's jump into this story. I don't know if maybe it's like a preemptive defense against the accusations that the right is gonna start burning books that they've been going around and like trying to ban them as much as possible. They're turning their focus now from the physical books in the libraries and from the librarians who might be grooming your kids by existing or giving them books. They've now turned to ebooks in several different states, e-reader apps. And the companies that run them have now been targeted by conservative parents who have pushed schools and public libraries to shut down their digital programs, which are there purely to let kids download and read books on their smartphones, tablets, or laptops. Some parents want the apps banned for their children. Some want them banned for all children. Not books, mind you, the entire platform that allows kids to read books. They want it banned for all of them. So right now, this is already happening. On the east coast of Florida, the Brevard County school system removed the Epic app from their computer system, saying it didn't want kids to have access to material that their own school librarians had not vetted. Schools and libraries currently sign up for programs like Epic, Hoopla, and Overdrive because readers say they like the convenience of ebooks and teachers get more options for assignments, especially during pandemic-related school closures. But that's the issue. This sort of app lets you get access to a lot of different library books. And especially if you live in an area where there may not be libraries, the libraries might not be well funded, or if your parents are working all day long with like 2 or 3 jobs and they can't take you there and stay with you, having digital remote access to books is an amazing advantage that can result in an educated population capable of critical thinking and all that. And Ida, that just can't be allowed. So now they're coming for it. This is not about targeting specific books that they have an issue with or stopping their own kids from getting access to it. After all, they could just take their phone away. This is about stopping every kid from getting access to a wide variety of different books.
Yeah, what did the big dummy tweet, the big dummy from Florida that preys on younger women allegedly? What's his name?
Matt Gaetz.
He just tweeted something about abortion with regards to its overly educated women. Like as if there's any such a thing as being overly educated. Coming from a community where we had a lack of resources and information, it was books, it was the library that helped someone like me get the vocabulary that I needed so that I could score well enough on that biased test, that standardized test that was rating me on what information I had based on the resources that I had against people who had better resources and things that I didn't have. It's just interesting to me, the war that people have on education, and it's because look who's thriving right now. Look who's killing it. Look who's doing well in terms of what they've taken their lemons and made lemonade with people that come from communities who normally wouldn't be doing well. They want the floor is looking towards balance, and they don't want that. So of course you're going to take away information. Information is power. Yeah. Education is power. It takes away the fear that you have of those who don't look like you and don't sound like you. So of course you're going to attack that when you want to go back to a time where only one group of people stayed at the top. And it's such a messed up place to be in, because these people that are coming for the rights are coming for all the rights. They're just chipping away at them one by one. It's not exclusively reproductive rights or health care. It's all of it. They're just attacking it from all ends. They're like parasites, and they're just coming from every direction, contaminating the country and just ruining and sending us back, making us a laughing stock of the world.
Yeah, and the only thing that makes it worse is that as they're going around, like for instance, banning books or banning entire platforms, they're screaming about they're the ones that are for free speech. They're the ones that are against cancel culture. It's like a cloud of locusts descending on and consuming your grain, and all the while screaming about how they want to act like people to have more barley. Like that but they do it, and we can't get through to the people they've deluded. Everyone who is cheering for Ron DeSantis to kill digital libraries believes in their heart that they're in favor of free speech, that they want more expression and everything. Just in practice, it doesn't work that way.
They've never read the Constitution. They've never had it explained to them. They don't know their rights. They only know their rights according to what Twitter says or what Fox News tells them their rights are. Because if they knew what their rights really are, they wouldn't be in favor of Fox News. They wouldn't be in favor of anybody who's directly opposed to them having life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and unalienable rights. But they don't know. And that's the reason why it's easy for them to be against it, because there's shame involved in not having an education. And there's worthiness issues there. And we don't talk about that. They're targeting you because the people that that are talking about this are sending their kids to the best schools. 100%. They're sending their kids to the best schools. They go into private prep schools that have a different set of rules that get them into the Ivy League schools so that they can brag about how their kids went to Harvard and Yale. Yet and still, they're convincing you to push back on education because their kids get to go to Yale based on your sacrifice and you don't even know it.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, this, like, I know to a lot of people, this might not strike you as the most important story, and let's keep it real on YouTube. Nobody's gonna watch this because we're talking about digital libraries being canceled. It's not drama, it's not people hitting each other, whatever. This really bothers me. We were talking before the show, like I was thinking, like, if a piece of glass connected to the internet, okay, if that technology could only do one thing, I think the thing that I would pick is give you access to millions of books. Like if all of this was for one thing, I would choose that over, like shows like this being able to be broadcast into your face. And that's the thing that they're coming for. Like the one good thing. They seem to think that no, the internet is for sharing QAnon videos and making like racial memes or whatever. Like that's what it's for. It's not for being exposed to new ideas, new ways of thinking, the perspectives of people with lives unlike your own. This is like literally the best of the internet. And that's why they're coming for it. They want you to be small and weak and ignorant and scared. That's what they want. And they're gonna produce it.
And they read the books. Readers are leaders. If you listen to all of these people, they all read the 48 Laws of Power. They read Napoleon Hill. They read Carnegie. They talk to you about religion, but they are metaphysical thinkers. They believe in all of the laws of the universal laws. But they're telling you because they know that you are religiously connected to some stuff. You're filled with fear. You don't know. It's interesting. Listen to the books that they're reading. I guarantee you, Tucker Carlson, when he was debating Cenk, was citing works.
Yeah,
they read the books.
And this is why I'm not a leader. I bought the 48 Laws of Power, and I didn't get through it. I think I read 2 or 3 of them. So there's a lot of laws that I don't know. Anyway, maybe someday I'll read it. Okay, we're gonna move on to one more topic in just a sec. I want to read just a couple comments because I saw Agnostic Sister saying, "Is in all caps, yes, I need some Aida sass today." Thank you. And Huffle Badger saying, "How could we not love you, Aida, when you're out here speaking truth?" 100%. I love it. And thank you, Skittlebutt Dragon Rasp, for gifting those subs. Very nice of you. Okay, with that said, we'll read more after our next break, but I want to jump into this last story. This is obviously a very dark, serious thing, as you will see, so everyone get ready, but let's jump into this.
For more than a century, tens of thousands of indigenous children were taken from their communities and forced into boarding schools run by the US government, specifically the Department of the Interior and religious institutions. When my maternal grandparents were only 8 years old, they were stolen from their parents' culture and communities and forced to live in boarding schools until the age of 13. Many children like them never made it back to their homes. The federal policies that attempted to wipe out Native identity, language, and culture continue to manifest in the pain tribal communities face today, including cycles of violence and abuse, disappearance of indigenous people, premature deaths, poverty and loss of wealth, mental health disorders, and substance abuse. Recognizing the impacts of the federal Indian boarding school system cannot just be a historical reckoning. We must also chart a path forward to deal with these legacy issues.
That is Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland, announcing in that she is going to be conducting a year-long tour for a number of different officials in the Department of Interior, where they're going to be meeting with and then helping to publicize the stories of the sorts of students that she was just talking about right there, that had been in these boarding schools, which had operated in dozens of states, specifically for Native American tribes, for kids to be taken. And sometimes they come out the other end, sometimes they don't. So they're going to be helping people to hear those stories. Along the way, though, they identified more than 500 student deaths at these institutions. Not at all of them, by the way. They looked at just 20 of them, and they've identified more than 500 student deaths. There were hundreds and hundreds of these. And I can't stress this enough. We've seen a couple different news cycles about Canada beginning to reckon with very similar schools. These are American ones. These hundreds across dozens of states operating for decades and decades and decades. It is not just in Canada, it was happening here too, Aida.
Yeah, of course it was. It was happening in Australia with the rabbit fence. It was happening all over, the world. And we tend to forget the First Nations people who we should be thanking every day for allowing us to be on their land. It's just egregious. Many women, tribal women, go missing and you never hear about them. The abuse against tribal women in this country is through the roof. The disappearances today are through the roof. And yet and still, you have to be blonde with blue eyes for your face to be made a public figure for people to try to find you. And the thing is that I don't resent that. I want everybody to matter. I don't want little white girls not to matter when they go missing. I just want little black girls, little brown girls, little indigenous girls, little Asian girls to matter too. And I don't understand why that's so hard for some people to accept.
I think that sounds incredibly reasonable. And it's not generally what we see. Occasionally, there'll be a story if there's something particularly dramatic about it that breaks the pattern, but that's generally not how it works. And this, I'm glad that Deb Haaland, Secretary Haaland, is going to be doing this, because maybe it'll give us an opportunity over the next year for more of these stories to come out, for people to learn about this incredibly dark history. Our team did a great job of compiling some of this information. Unfortunately, we're about to run up against the end of the hour, so we don't have time to dive into it. But PBS right now has a great breakdown of some of what the Department of Interior has already uncovered, and they're going to be continuing this work up until a Republican gets back in office and kills the entire thing. So you got that to look forward to. Anyway, unfortunately, that's all the time we have with you, Aida. It is always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Having me. And thank you to all of your Dragon Squad people who show up at my shows. They came to Sacramento, they came to New York, they came to Colorado Springs. It is not lost on me. I am so grateful to the TYT community who shows up for me. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. So we had to end really abruptly at the end there. But if you want to see more of Aida, she is on a lot of different content on her network. Is going to be joining us for our election coverage next Tuesday. You can follow her on social media at Funny Aida, AIDA. If you do, if you go follow her right now, which would be awesome. Go to one of her tweets and reply that the Dragon Squad sent you, so that she knows where you came from. I think that would be great. And Fighting Words is her recent special. It's hilarious. You're definitely gonna want to check that out. Now, with that said, let's see what's going on out there. Donna Schotten has been a member for 9 months. Thank you for that, Donna. Oh Crap Guy became a tier 2 member. Oh crap, that's awesome, thank you. Quasita the Q Dragon has been a tier 2 member for 13 months, says, oh look, 13 months, please support Project Gutenberg, free access to 60,000 plus works, a nonprofit library project to preserve the legacy of storytelling in books, newspapers, and radio. English BAs unite. Couldn't agree more, Project Gutenberg is absolutely awesome. Everyone definitely check it out. Let's see, Smiling Dragon says, libraries are for all. I read what I want, you read what you want. Library must allow me more than your choices, ignorance and action, sheesh. 100%. I love libraries, man. I was one of the kids that like going to the library when I was a kid, I thought was the coolest thing. And probably also helped to make me a complete nerd because I came across some original Dungeons and Dragons books and I got into that, and that got me into gaming and everything. Like we should be funding libraries way more, not trying to like get rid of their digital incarnations. Anyway, Miss Carnes says, husband and I have decided to have no more kids. I can't take birth control for health. I'm horrified that Georgia will force me to go through pregnancy complications to have a kid if raped that I would not want. No one should have to worry about your government doing that to you. Okay, let's see. Drew in Georgia gifted a couple of tier 1 subs. Thank you for that over on Twitch. Great to have you doing that. Paper Dragons with us for 10 months says, sending my American neighbors strength and hope for the fight you are up against. Many Canadians are behind you. Thank you. We shouldn't need it though. We shouldn't be having to wage these battles. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna jump into a little bit of positive news, maybe, arguably. We've got some weird stuff for you. Let's jump into this. Now, the footage that you're seeing sped up is coming from Florida, but wait, it's not gonna end as horribly as most things in Florida do. A car starts to careen across the intersection. A woman instantly runs out like a superhero to try to slow it down and ward people away from it. And that inspires more people to run for all directions, including a man in military attire. They're able to stop the car. So inside the car, there is a woman slumped over a steering wheel. Apparently it had some sort of medical problem that caused her to be unable to control the vehicle. So people tried to do something. A guy you saw tried to punch through the window, immediately regretted that decision, I imagine. And then a woman goes back to her car, gets a weight that she'd been carrying around, because she's grinding, working out all day. And he takes that and he successfully smashes it in. I will say, at first, when he takes that weight and tries to smash it in, it didn't look like it worked. And I thought, if it warded off that weight, I feel so bad for the guy who tried to punch the window in. I still do. But they were able to actually get through, smash the side window, unlock the door, and help the person. And that is awesome, and that is what you want to see. I mean, in a very real sense, you'd prefer to not have had any of this happen. That would be great. But if people are going to be having these sorts of medical emergencies, you want someone to help them immediately. That could have been way worse. Her car could have been hit. It could have careened into another car off the road. And my main fear here is something that has been identified and sometimes exaggerated, but it's known as the bystander effect. And what that is basically is that in the face of something bad happening, someone needing help, there can be, in some circumstances, a thing where you want to help, everyone wants to help, but nobody wants to be the one to do it. Not that they don't want to help, it's that they feel uncomfortable being the one to do something. You see something happening and you are trained to believe, well, there are authorities in the world. A cop is gonna come, or a nurse, or someone's gonna do something. It's not on me, right? Like, I'm not an expert. Should I help? What if I make it worse? And sometimes lots of people can feel that way and nothing happens. But you'll often find that if one person springs into action, that will inspire other people to do so. Now, as I alluded to, the bystander effect in some cases has been exaggerated and academia hasn't necessarily reproduced it, but it can happen. And in this case, we didn't have to worry about it because that one woman ran into traffic to try to stop a car with her just her own body, trying to stop it to save that person. It is just a regular, like, everyday act of heroism. And obviously most people, we go through months, years without being faced by anything like that. But we all want to imagine that we would do what that woman did and what those other people did, that we would try to maybe not punch through the window. That's a really bad idea, but grab something and knock out the window. And so great work by her. By the way, in response to this, the Boynton Beach Police Department said, you all work fast. They've been trying to get in touch with these people. Said, we've been put in touch with several of the Good Samaritans. We're coordinating everyone's schedules to get them together with the woman they rescued. We will let you know once it's confirmed. Thank you. And that'll be nice. They'll have a nice little lunch or something. I'm assuming that the woman's okay. There hasn't been much information about what ended up happening to her. It's sort of like the story we talked about earlier this week with the person who was piloting a plane and passed out and someone else leaped to the rescue to land it. Once the person passes out, they're out of these stories generally. It's a weird thing that we do as a society. I am assuming that she is okay and soon we'll be able to meet with and thank the people that helped her, and that'll be nice. Anyway, there's no bigger political implications to this necessarily. I mean, I could speculate that someday self-driving cars could potentially stop these sorts of situations or something, but no, it's just nice news. And sometimes that's enough. Okay, with that said, let's see. I wanna remind you all that tomorrow's gonna be Friday, and that means that you get another opportunity to participate in our weekly Food for Thought trivia game that we do. Basically how it works is you join the Young Turks bonus episodes, that last half hour, and they're gonna do a trivia question about something that was covered on that week of TYT. If you answer correctly, then you are entered into a chance to win a $100 gift card to Blue Apron. So $100 of food, and so you can feed your appetite for fun trivia along the week, and then afterward, feed your actual appetite. And if you want more information about how to participate, where you can or can't participate, you can go to tyt.com/food for that. Let me read just a couple of quick, we got plenty of time. I'm gonna read a couple of quick super chats. Coney Jag sent in a few super chats saying, who says we are still sane watching news daily? Believing nothing is gonna change with abortion is equal to believing Putin's claims he wouldn't invade. Yeah, that worked out well. Also says we can do nothing. Looks like the same message, but in any event, Coney Jag, thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate it. Let's see, Yoda says, gracias. I appreciate the message. You do not want me to hear me try to read that entire super chat, but much appreciated as always for being with us. Thank you. And Smiling Dragon says, every single one of you will need to vote to remove anti-choice, whether it's abortion or anything against choice over even one part of your body, please. I agree. And right now, of course, we know that we have a Democratic Party that is sending out tweets like that and then going and rallying for people like Henry Cuellar. Or in the case of Clyburn, we find out there are actually multiple anti-choice candidates that he is going around the country supporting. So that's great. That's great. Anyway, Brad TRDM says in the Twitch chat, TYT D&D night when? I like that idea. I do want to do that at some point. And I know that there are people like Craig plays Dungeons and Dragons. I know Mike has asked about it. My issue, and honestly, this is gonna sound weird, this is super inside baseball and nerdy. I would love to do a role-playing session with people from TYT. I don't really want to do Dungeons and Dragons. I'm kind of Dungeons and Dragons out, and I think that there's a wide range of RPGs we could do. But I don't know, would that be weird? Would that not be popular enough? Anyway, heads up to our publishers. Kaladin has a good idea for that digital library thing. Says just need to title the video something like DeSantis burns digital books to get people to pay attention. Let's do that, actually. Let's do what Kaladin said. Anyway, with that said, why don't we jump into another story? Let's jump off into this.
I think there will be some very strong companies coming out of China. There's just a lot of super talented, hardworking people in China that are strongly believe in manufacturing, and they won't just be burning the midnight oil; they'll be burning the 3 a.m. oil. So They won't even leave the factory type of thing. Whereas in America, people are trying to avoid going to work at all.
We've got a question on the Cybertruck.
Okay, if the end of that video seemed a little bit awkward, that's because I wanted you to know for sure that we're not cutting that off. That was the end of the comment. Elon Musk thinks American workers are pathetically lazy. And I don't know if he was trying to be funny or trying to be serious. He's a really awkward person. So he just sort of stared at the camera, and the interviewer felt really awkward at what Elon Musk had just said, and then moves on to a question about the Cybertruck and whether it'll be released in 2025 or 2030 or God only knows when. That's it. That's Elon Musk saying Chinese car manufacturers are gonna do a great job because they actually care about work, whereas the American workforce is just really lazy. Now, he doesn't actually believe that. He knows from personal experience that sometimes workers can be quite organized and active. They might, for instance, try to unionize, and he has always been vigorously opposed to that. He's not interested in that. But he does love just casually denigrating American workers. And honestly, look, I think it's worth focusing on this with Elon Musk, because a lot of like regular conservatives have been deluded over the past month or so into thinking that Elon Musk has their interests at heart. No, Elon Musk is an oligarch. That's all he is. He might post a lot more memes than Russian oligarchs, but that's all he is. He doesn't care about you. He has nothing in common with you, and he does not share any of your economic interests. Bear that in mind. That said, he is hardly the only rich, out of touch conservative who's telling American workers that they need to stop being lazy. You can't go like 1 hour on Fox News without seeing, for instance, a video like this.
Go to rescueamerica.com. There's nothing that the president said that's in there. What I've said is, let's get people back to work so they have skin in the game. I mean, think about it. We want people to work in this country. I grew up in a poor family. I lived in public housing, and I know what my mom said, get to work. So think about it. When you have work, you don't have to rely on the federal government for food stamps. You don't have to rely on the federal government for your health care. You don't have to rely on the federal government for anything. You're independent.
That is a big old liar, a big old fraud conducting liar. Plenty of people work and still need food stamps or whatever, insert whatever sort of form of governmental or social support that people need despite working a job or 2 jobs or 3 jobs. What Rick Scott either doesn't know or is pretending not to know is that you can work 40, 60, 80 hours a week and still struggle just to make ends meet, because in America, employers don't give a damn about you. They don't value you or the product of your work, and they will pay you as little as they are legally allowed to. His job, of course, is to make sure that that legal limit is as low as it can possibly be, and that results in tons of people desperately needing that help, either for themselves to make sure that they can afford housing or food or healthcare, or for their kids to actually be able to afford literally any of this. And the insult to injury, the injury is that in America, you can do everything that you're told to do. You can grind it out every single day and never get ahead. In fact, fall behind now, thanks to inflation. Never have a hope of being able to own a home. That's for rich people who were born in the 1930s. If you wanted a home, you should have been born earlier. And then on top of that, you will be insulted. You will work and work and work and sweat, and they will call you lazy every step of the way. And you would think, well, how can that possibly continue? How can they spit in our face every single day and still stay in power? They got Fox News, and they've got sophisticated media and PR environments that use culture war tactics to delude people. They pit us against each other. They stimulate various phobias along sexual and religious and racial grounds and all that. That's what they do, and they get us, in fact, to love the people who spit in our face. People like Rick Scott, lots of Republicans love him. Elon Musk is incredibly popular despite thinking that you're a lazy bastard who needs to get off your ass. It's weird how that works out. Meanwhile, by the way, he's being investigated by the SEC for failing to disclose that he was buying Twitter shares when he was supposed to. He filed the form he was supposed to file 10 days after the date when he was supposed to. Now you might think, well, John, now you have Elon Musk derangement syndrome. Who cares if he filed paperwork like 10 days late? Well, he cares, because he apparently saved something like $143 million by delaying the filing of that paperwork. he, in choosing to not comply with the law in that one instance, made more than, I don't know, everybody watching the show right now will make over the next 10 years combined. And he's willing to do that. He's willing to break the law despite the fact that he doesn't need that money. $143 million is less for him than 5 cents is for me. But he cares so little about the law that he'll break it anyway, just on lack of principle. Anyway, with that said, we need to get to these other stories. There's so much I want to talk about. Oh God, I hope that we get to the J block. Okay, we got to get to the I block. We will in just one sec. Google has logged me out of all of my documents live on air. That's fun. Thank you, Google. But I want to read 1 or 2 comments before I jump into this I block. If we can get ready for the video though. And of course, when I load up my document, it's going to take forever to actually make the screenshots legible. Isn't that awesome? Okay, well with that said, oh no, there it goes. Zombel says, Pathfinder John, Pathfinder beats D&D in every way. I appreciate the suggestion. I have nothing against Pathfinder. In my mind, Pathfinder is very, very similar to D&D, at least previous generations of D&D. I'm thinking something like Fate or Mouse Guard, or doing like a sci-fi campaign or a supers thing or Cthulhu or something. But anyway, we'll talk about it. We'll figure something out. Okay, with that said, why don't we jump into this?
You gotta hope that there's some sincere billionaire out there who's gonna fund a primary challenge against every single one of those Republican senators standing behind Mitch McConnell. As he said, and we'll quote again, I think we all agree the most important thing going on in the world right now is the war in Ukraine. No, the most important thing going on in the world right now is the state of your country, the one you're supposed to run, the people you're supposed to represent, whose lives you're supposed to care about.
Okay, so there's a lot going on in just that small clip. I want to make sure that we don't miss, though, that Tucker Carlson, noted populist who is against the ruling elite, his deepest fantasy is that there's a benevolent billionaire who's going to sweep in to take out everyone he disagrees with. Weird for a guy who hates the elites, but the point that he's trying to make there, if he's ever trying to make any point, is that our politicians, on the right, by the way, he's talking about conservatives, should be primaried if they give military aid to Ukraine. Because Tucker Carlson, while he's been changing his tactics and his strategy every step along the way during this barbaric war, the one through line has been that he really, really doesn't want Ukraine to have a chance against Russia. Now, does that matter whether Tucker Carlson believes this? Well, it's influential. It's influencing tons of Republicans on the right, and it's led to a feud between Dan Crenshaw and Marjorie Greene. It started off, by the way, this feud about other things. Dan Crenshaw tweeted, our open border and the fentanyl pouring across it is killing Americans in record numbers. Biden doesn't care. They only care what the radical immigration groups think, not you. And what he said there is suitably insane for a Republican, one would think, pretending that we have an open border, pretending that nobody cares about people dying from overdoses, pretending that the Republicans tried to do anything to stop this when they were in charge. What did they do to stop fentanyl and the opioid crisis? Literally nothing, but he actually got attacked from the right for that. Chig Bungus tweeted at him, yeah, you sound off about that stuff, but then you vote yes on the 40 billion to Ukraine. Now, why do I mention that it's Chig Bungus? Because Chig Bungus ratioed him big time with that. Thousands and thousands of tweets. People can't get enough of Chig Bungus. So Dan Crenshaw tried to respond to it saying, yeah, because investing in the destruction of our adversary's military without losing a single American troop strikes me as a good idea. You should feel the same. Now that's a little bit weird for multiple reasons. One, that is really bloodthirsty right there. He totally wants this to be a proxy war between us and Russia. Also, because I will remind you, he's arguing with Chig Bungus. But it gets crazier. Marjorie Greene jumps in to tweet, so you think we are funding a proxy war with Russia? You speak as if Ukrainian lives should be thrown away, as if they have no value, just used and thrown away for your proxy war. How does that help Americans? How does any of this help? And honestly, if you don't know anything about Marjorie Greene, if you just read the content of that, it's not the craziest thing she said. It might literally be the only non-crazy thing that she's said. Of course, we do have to remember that she has been spending the past couple of months literally advocating for Ukraine to unilaterally surrender in the face of this barbaric genocide that Russia is prosecuting against them, with the purposeful targeting of civilians and apparently systematic mass rape of people in Ukraine as well. She pretends to care about that while wanting them to have to beg for mercy in the face of this assault, which is weird. Anyway, Dan Crenshaw responds because this is now a full-on feud between them, saying, still going after that slot on Russia today, huh? Referencing, state-sponsored media from Russia. That's not gonna, Dan, I mean, that's perfectly fine. I don't think that she is. I think if anything, she wants to be on like Newsmax or whatever, but that's not gonna win over the right on your behalf. So she takes another shot at him saying sanctions aren't stopping anything, but they are driving inflation and fuel prices. I don't even like, that's both not true. Like sanctions against Russian oligarchs, I don't think are broadly responsible for like bicycles being more expensive in the US. That's a weird thing to say. Also, he hadn't been talking about sanctions, so I don't even know what she's saying, but she says, I refuse to vote for useless measures that cause problems but solve none. While you send 40 billion for your proxy war against Russia, I'm focused on baby formula for American babies. To be clear, what she's focused on in this conflict is whether Russian oligarchs should be sanctioned. So she's mad that we would potentially send money directly to Ukraine. Technically, we'd be buying weapons. We're sending the money to defense contractors and then sending the weapons to Ukraine. But she's fine with the money being held by the Russian oligarchs. I don't know. And I don't think that they know either. This is the state of their party. What she is advancing right there isn't some sort of long-standing preference for Russian domination of Ukraine. She's never thought about another country in her life. But she does know what Tucker Carlson yells at her and the rest of the right every day. And that is producing this schism on the right. And weirdly, by the way, while Tucker Carlson holds this position and the politicians do, most like regular Republicans don't. If you look at this chart, while there has been a weird gap between Democrat and Republican opinions on Vladimir Putin, it's not really there anymore post-war. We both tend to agree that killing tons of people is bad. But their elites in media and politics and some of their followers on Twitter, they have a slightly different position. Let's just bear that in mind going forward. Okay, with that said, unfortunately, we have run out of time with still a lot of good stuff to talk about. We will have to save it for Brett Ehrlich, who will be joining us tomorrow. We will, of course, be throwing away our garbage people as we do every week. You get a chance now to vote for the community garbage person of the week by going to the community tab on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. Can't wait to see who you choose. I am about to go do an awesome interview with a guest who is trying to get some of the crypto bros to not walk off that cliff. We're gonna see if she can succeed. We'll have that for you on the channel soon. But for now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. I'll see you soon.